This is your host, Sophie, from Awakenings with Sophie, where we take a modern spin on healing old wounds. Every week, we have a guest on our show tell us what's going on in their life that they're struggling with, and then I give them coaching guidance on how they can work through this and heal it, in hopes that it may inspire somebody else out there to do the healing work and get the freedom that their soul is longing for. But before we get started, let's hear the magic medicine quote of the week.
Michael Beckwith says, "We are not here to have a challenge-free life. So focus on what you can become instead of what you must accomplish." But I just love this quote because how many of us focus on like getting there? Like, I want to be in this stress-free place where everything is okay. And that might be true in certain areas where that can actually happen. But what if we just focus on what we're meant to become through the journey instead of wanting to change the journey?
I do this deep healing work with my clients, and we go through a 4-phase process: recognize, release, reprogram, and radiate. We need to recognize and identify the real issue before we can actually release the energy. But once we release it, we then reprogram this space. We can radiate the truth of our being. And now let's dive into our metaphorical healing hut as we welcome our guest.
Krissi, so I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here.
So tell me the problem going on in your life and let's dive in and see what we can do to help.
So there has been a little bit of a challenge. Somewhere in my finances, I'm noticing blockages and resistance. And then also, with my daughter, and having a new relationship, I'm finding that she's really struggling. And she's just really struggling, and it makes the whole family kind of dynamic sadder, slower energy, I think. And I want her to be happy as much as I want everybody to be happy.
Well, which one is the biggest pain point for you?
Dating after divorce. Yeah.
Dating after divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's dive in. Okay. What is the problem?
So, there are problems surrounding just this past, that the past relationship was so bad and so heavy and so dark that it kind of left me with this expectation that, it all ends up that way kind of thing.
Okay. So the problem is I fear that relationships hurt.
Yes.
Okay. And so what is your current situation with a relationship?
Bliss. Like this crazy mixture of bliss and fear.
Okay. So you have a false belief being reprogrammed, but the false belief is still active. And so you're ping-ponging between the fear and this new state of love.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe even just starting by acknowledging, okay, I am ready to heal.
I am ready to heal.
Yeah. I am ready to heal this space in me that says relationships hurt. Mm-hmm. And start there. So every time you go back to that fear, we acknowledge, you can write down, what you're really scared of. I'm scared that he is going to leave me. I'm scared I'm going to be abandoned. I'm scared I'm going to be rejected. I'm all the big daddies, right?
Yeah.
And be willing to face that. So I would definitely, I don't use Band-Aid affirmations, to just say slap, I am well on I am sick. Let's get the sickness out so that we can really hold the space for wellness.
Yes.
So I would really start to perceive this fear as just a false belief that is being unlocked from your system so that you can really begin to heal it.
Right.
So your
Yes.
soul is ready.
Mm-hmm.
Your soul is ready to rewrite this program. And the program was relationships hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, has that program showed up in other relationships outside of your marriage or your,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Every relationship, I think.
Okay. So we have some big reprogramming going on.
Mm-hmm. Yes. A lot of, like work relationships, you know, with bosses. I don't know. I seem to like attract like this narcissistic boss in my life, as well as like the narcissistic partner. It's just been like a common theme.
And so what is your role with the narcissistic boss? Like what role
Like,
do you find yourself
the
going
people
into?
pleaser, just the yes woman, you know, taking it all on. And
Okay.
yeah.
So let's talk about people pleasing for a
Yes.
second. I always joke, I was too selfish to be a people pleaser. But I have worked with so many people pleasers. And what I have found, and you can kind of seek your own inward self to see if this resonates, but what I have found with people pleasers is that ultimately, at some point, you knew what you want and you got it and you were disappointed. Mm-hmm. So something happened in you that says, I don't want to know what I want anymore. I would rather know what they want because I don't want to feel that disappointment again. So let me focus all my energy on what they want and make sure that that comes true for them. So if they're disappointed, it doesn't affect me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
free and clear. And if they're happy, great. Then I get to have this false sense of happiness. So I feel like there's two things going on there with people pleasers, where there's like this fear of disappointing your own self, and then almost latching on to others in order to feel happiness. Mm-hmm. So in both cases, there's self-abandonment.
Yes.
Do you feel like it, because we're going deep, right? Let's just like dive in. Do you feel like you have the tendency to self-abandon?
Yes. Yes.
How so?
Well, more in the past, but, you know, and I can really resonate with that, especially in my marriage. You know, I would put all of my energy into him, you know, into his recovery, into his parenting, you know, and not looking at myself and not taking care of me, to the point where, you know, I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. I was so focused on him. And if he was happy, I was allowed to be happy. He was never happy. So, you know, it was just, I really abandoned myself in that aspect. And I did that for years and years and years, thinking that that was love. You know, that was how you showed love. It's just to give of yourself and not, you know, and have nothing. And then also, you know, I would say with my mom a little bit, I won't confront any like situation that's hard. You know, I don't want to disappoint her, you know, and I feel like I've been a huge disappointment. Yeah.
Okay.
And that goes back a long, you know, just a long time.
And how have you been a huge disappointment?
You know, just, I think she just had, you know, bigger goals for me than I've ever attained yet, you know? And, you know, she's very, very driven and she's very successful. And I love that about her. She's very like neat and organized, and I'm a little bit of a mess. You know, plus, you know, it's an active addiction for a very long time. I've, you know, found a lot of solace in first drinking and then, you know, using substances to just numb, just constantly numbing. And it was like, you know, a couple years ago that I just decided I couldn't do it anymore. I had to live and break free from all of this.
Yeah. So you've done a ton of work on yourself.
Yes.
And doing all this work means that you go into the room and you start cleaning it out, and you look at the dirty clothes and you start making sense of it all. Right. And it's not fun. Like my running joke is healing is such a pretty word with like a horrendous process.
It is horrible.
Leads to a great place.
It does.
But that's when we call it healed. Yeah. But it sounds like one of your big issues is probably self-abandonment. Mm-hmm. Now, I know you said at the very beginning that finances were kind of an issue, right?
Right.
So if self-abandonment is an issue going on, how would you manifest prosperity, which is self-fulfillment?
Right.
So if the dominant vibration is that I leave myself, mm-hmm. how are we going to pull and create a magnetic force to pull stuff in? It's almost like that vibration of self-abandonment creates a repulsive, I don't fill up this space, mm-hmm. which is what prosperity is, right? Is a fullness. Mm-hmm. It's like that magnetic vibration of being able to pull energy, money, crystals, love, friendship into you. You have this magnetic force. You don't have to do anything. It just comes because it's a match for the vibration that you hold. So this is where I think people get very stuck on the law of attraction or mixed up with the law of attraction, is because they're holding a certain frequency and then they're trying to override that with thoughts, which just is not even a fair fight. Like thought, energy, and belief are like two different, it's like Little League and what is it?
World
Mega
Series.
League? Well, yeah. It's a different game. So what I would say is coming through this to me is that your self acceptance, coming home to yourself, like I feel very strong third chakra work. Mm-hmm. Like self-identity, self-power, I got you, girl.
Right.
Like if you can shift the energy there in the third chakra to complete and total self-acceptance, mm-hmm. you will transform your finances. You will probably transform the relationships with dating after divorce. Mm-hmm. And you'll probably be able to do a lot of releasing work on your childhood and your addiction that moves rather quickly.
Right.
Because you'll be changing your frequency. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
That's total sense. And actually, when you said, self-abandonment, it's like this light went off in my head. And it's like, that's it. That's like, I've never said that word or heard that word before this day, abandonment, I've always had that kind of vibration and frequency within me. And I've always known that, like the fear of abandonment, but I didn't click with me that I was doing it to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it shows up. It's like, that's probably what's happening because it was a learned pattern. Right. Somewhere along the way, you picked it up, whether it was society, home, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You picked it up and you thought, I am abandonable. Right. It's okay to abandon me. So then 30 years later, 10 years later, it shows up at work as being a people pleaser and taking on too much. Right. Because you take on other people's stuff instead of actually holding space for your own. And so if you think about part of like the work you can do around this abandonment is really like, in a way, go into that abandonment and feel what it feels like. Like find eyes closed, like that space, and then try to find the opposite. So what is the opposite of abandonment?
Acceptance.
Okay.
Self-love.
So then you start to play with those energies and you start to ask yourself in everything you do, you just start to try to ask your higher self to remind you of this tape. It's like, what would acceptance do? What would acceptance look like? If I were to practice acceptance right now, what would that be? And you start getting so in tune with what acceptance looks like. And then you start to pull that vibration in. And then once it's in, you just expand it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a great place to practice.
Yeah.
A great place to practice is on your body.
Mm.
I love doing acceptance work with my cellulite because I feel like I have a lot of it, and it's right in my face. And society kind of sends us the message that cellulite isn't pretty.
Mm.
But I have so much of it. I'm like, it has to be pretty. Why would I have so much? I'm so abundant in cellulite. So I try to look at it, and I've written about this in my book, that I see it as my unique animal print. Mm-hmm. And accepting every divot and every shadow as my fingerprint, my unique signature, and accept it. And then when society kind of gets in and I look at too much Instagram, or whatever, I'm like, uh-oh, the program got triggered. I have to practice my acceptance program again and embrace who I am. And so doing it on that level, naked, in front of the mirror, makes it like very easy for me to then practice it in other areas. So you just have to like find a spot that you pour your energy into that acceptance. And then I feel like it just starts to expand.
Right. I love that. Finding the opposite and feeling into that and feeling the abandonment, because it is something that I just run from. Don't want to feel it.
Yeah. And it's like that running from it is part of what keeps it there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Resist persists.
Yeah. So tell me what you're taking away from today.
So I'm definitely taking away a lot of just new knowledge, honestly. I'm really blown away, the self-abandonment, and I'm seeing it now so much in my whole life, how it played out, and these situations that just kept reoccurring. And I'm like, well, I know I need to learn something from it. And in my mind, it's like, well, I need to leave that situation, and I kept doing that. I kept leaving the situation, and it kept showing back up because I really wasn't addressing it. But I love the feeling, the abandonment. Like, I'm going to go do that the second we are done. Just go in and meditate and feel. And, and actually I think it's going to help too with the situation with my daughter, and her not, because I know she has abandonment issues. Her dad's not in her life right now. It probably feels like I'm taking a step back too. And that must be terrifying. Must be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. And if you heal it in you, you can help her heal it.
Yes. So it starts with me. Yeah. The trickle down effect.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for opening up your sacred self and sharing with us, and showing what can really happen when we open up and look at our truth. You are a great example of this work. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. I love you.
I love you too. Okay.
Now it's time for the crystallization. This is the space I hold so that the crystal kingdom can send us a message. The crystal of this episode is
agate. Now, here is an example of an agate. You might see these at like Marshall's and Home Goods and even like Restoration Hardware. They're showing up everywhere. This is basically a rock. And when they cut it open, it has all these different colors. This is druzy, which means it's a sparkly aspect. But this is an agate. And let me tell you what agate can do for you. So agate is the stone of stabilizing. Energetically, it is considered to give strength, enhance creativity, and balance the yin-yang energy. Because it's a grounding stone, it does not increase energy at all times, but rather enables bursts of energy as needed. It's a very protective stone, and emotionally, it gives courage, self-confidence, and dispels fears. It can be very beneficial for self-examination, easing anxiety and stress, and accepting your emotions. Agate can cleanse and stabilize your aura by removing and transforming negative energy and removing blockages. So that is our crystallization of the week. And I just love agate. Agate also comes in lots of dyed colors. So you might see it as a bright pink, or its most natural colors are gray, brown, and then black. But if you see it in blues, those are all actually man manipulated. But they do take on the color spectrum. So if it is a blue agate, it will basically be working more with the fifth chakra. Or if it's a pink, it might be working more with the heart. So we love agate. Thank you, agate, for giving us so much balance.
And now let's drop in for our Awaken question of the week.
And the question of the week is from Kim from West Palm Beach, Florida. She asks about the life coaching industry and getting certified. She says, can a coach specialize in a certain area like marriage or divorce, etc.? And what my suggestion is if you are looking to become a certified coach, find a program and a teacher that you really, really resonate with, that really calls something out of you. The industry is not really that standardized. So the industry doesn't have all this standardization. So you have ICF, which I kind of call like the Harvard of coaching schools. And then you have all these other types of certifications. I really feel that it is more important that you are in resonance with your teacher, whoever's going to be teaching you, whether it's yoga, coaching, Reiki. You want to have that feeling of being lit up. And once you get a basic understanding of your coaching skills, then you can seek out certifications for stuff that is more specific. Like if you wanted to become a Reiki life coach or a divorce life coach, you would want the very specific skills on what you're going to do in that divorce area that's different. And maybe it's collaborative divorce. You would want to get a certification that's going to show you those specific skills on top of your coaching background. So the answer to that question is yes, you can specialize in a certain area. You just have to seek out, find the program. But I would definitely have a program that you do first that's just generalized in coaching. That's all I have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Awaken with Sophie and DM me any of your spiritual questions for the chance for them to be answered on our next episode. Use hashtag AwakenFam so we can see how you are awakening. Until next time, keep turning those obstacles into opportunities, my loves. Namaste.